Hello everyone, welcome back to the North American LCS. I'm David FLICKR, along with my co-caster Joshua Jatt Leesman. We got some more League of Legends.
Quick hello to you, Sir David FLICKR, and then we're going to be getting into these games. I don't think you've ever been officially Sir'd, but I'm not going to do it here. Maybe one day.
Now I'm a knight, apparently. Yeah. We're going to keep the action rolling with Team SoloMid versus NME Esports. Now yesterday, TSM opened up against Cloud9, just as they have in the last 3 splits, and if the results are as predictive as they have been in the past, we can go ahead and call it. Cloud9 is going to retake the championship title. We may be in for 6 more weeks of winter. Why even play the games?
Yeah, I don't even know, man. Maybe we're just done. But honestly, that was a very close game where Bjergsen had a huge advantage early on in the game, a 45 CS differential at 10 minutes. He built up that quick CS lead over Incarnation, and then TSM also secured 5 Dragons in that game while giving up 0 to Cloud9, but they still lost.
Yeah.
And that honestly shouldn't happen. TSM, they were out-traded by Cloud9. Too many objective trades TSM shouldn't have given to them. And Cloud9 did keep it close despite some of the leads that TSM had. So TSM, if they are able to get those leads, have to be able to capitalize better.
We'll see if their shift key is going to work this game. Today we are facing NME Esports, or they are facing NME Esports, who were able to take down Gravity in their LCS debut. Now Otter, in particular, the AD carry, he really stepped up as Vayne to pick off enemies in team fights. Great play by him.
Yeah, he played awesome. He waited so long to get into the LCS and then had that awesome performance. And the other big impact player on that team was a returning LCS player, but in a different lane this time, Inox. I mean, an 86% kill participation on Kassadin. Also, the confidence and momentum that could transfer over into this game could go a long way. So, we'll see if NME's still feeling good enough and they can hand TSM their first 0-2 start and also get a 2-0 start for themselves in NME.
That'd be a pretty good company to be in if you're NME Esports up there. 2-0 to start the first week is a pretty damn good splash.
Yeah.
Either way, we're going to check out the starting lineups. And on the blue side is Team SoloMid. Dyrus in the top lane, Santorin in the jungle, Bjergsen in mid, Wild Turtle and AD carry, and Lustboy on support.
And on the red side, of course, it is NME Esports. Flares in the top lane, Trashy in the jungle, who had just gotten here. They didn't even get to play practice games with him before this weekend. Inox in the mid lane, Otter as the AD carry, and Body Drop on support.
So as we get our players into this game, I think one of the big stories for me is always how teams start out at the very beginning of the split. Right? We have a lot of teams where the players would go back home and then they come back together and start practicing. You mentioned Trashy had played literally 0 practice games in the last 3 weeks with his team. They're like prepping to play with a jungle sub. And TSM as well, I guess they would have been sort of the warmest coming in. They just come back from MSI and kind of kept themselves practicing to prepare for the NA LCS split. But
you'd hope.
Start of the split, right? Who enters out strong, who enters out weak, and how do they grow from there?
Yeah, TSM's actually started every split 1-1 that they've played in the LCS, which is a cool stat.
Wow.
Our stat guy found last night. Maybe they buck the trend this week, which wouldn't be ideal for TSM fans if they wanted to start 0-2.
Bad way to break the curse.
Yeah, and honestly, you have to wonder what lingering effects that MSI performance had, because they do not want to walk into this split and then start 0-2 after such a poor performance on the international stage.
Sure, yeah. They had largely lost their games at MSI due to generally overly slow early games, though Bjergsen would have pretty good performances himself. The rest of the team didn't seem to do quite enough early on, most specifically Santorin. And as we kind of speak of junglers who aren't doing a lot early on, Trashy, again, we mentioned him again. I think he's the biggest question mark right now for NME. He's normally very good, but without having the practice time, he had a pretty lackluster game yesterday, despite the team's win.
He really did. There was some confusion early on for NME, but they fought through and won a much longer game. Although TSM themselves were unable to close in a 45-minute defeat to Cloud9. And TSM also kind of has to worry about this. They defeated a Cloud9 team who looked really sloppy and bad against Team Dignitas as well.
Sure.
There's a serious risk here of TSM falling 0-2 at the start of the LCS.
Well, we'll see. As they pick and ban away, they remove Flares as Aurelia. They remove the Kog'Maw from Inox, so it looks like these guys are taking the exact same choices that Gravity had made against NME Esports. Santorin still no Gragas. And no Cassio for your Bjergsen. All right, so maybe a pinch on the mid-range team fighters then for NME Esports.
Yeah.
Rek'Sai goes away from Trashy.
Yeah, double jungle ban, making sure the TSM can't first pick the Rek'Sai, so those jungle picks will fall to the less dominant jungle picks thus far.
I actually want to see what happens when they start having less jungle interference. So we actually saw that Santorin was willing to gank for Dyrus yesterday and blew a flash. The gank kind of worked in a certain sense, but Flares is a heavily aggressive player. And I think he'll be trying to fight Dyrus a whole lot. Alistair gets first picked in. I want to see what FLICKR does in that matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because this is... NME is a lot of talented players that are just making the LCS debut, and FLICKR's, he stays at the top of the solo queue ladder, so he knows how to apply a lot of pressure in that lane. Where he doesn't have as much experience is dealing with coordinated teams giving jungle pressure. Now, TSM isn't the typical team to provide top lane jungle pressure. They were trying it a little bit. This would be their opportunity to really try and get it, knowing the FLICKR is going to be playing aggressive and trying to just push Dyrus out again and again.
We'll see if that's going to happen here. Often ends up being a double-edged sword for FLICKR. Sometimes he gives up just a few too many kills. Sometimes he carries the game on his back. Alistair, first pick for SoloMid, is going to give the backline plenty of safety. Enemy picking who knows what. Has he got 10 seconds left?
Yeah, it's probably these two picks, I think. Safe.
I'm going to bet you it's not.
Safe bet. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just hovering these things rather late into the clock, but this is the...
Oh, wow. That was later than I was expecting.
Yeah. So if they misclick a pick in this, I believe they'd have to make a case for misclicking, but as long as they notify the referees before it would switch over, so before TSM locks in a pick, then they'd be able to redo picks and bans. Luckily, we don't have to do that. They go with the Shadow Isles for Hecarim, Kalista right there.
Yeah.
I mean, priority picks basically across the board. These are all the powerful blind picks you can do nowadays. Alistair is one that's really crept up post-MSI. Everyone's been playing it in scrims. Now you see it banned heavily and first pick priority for TSM. Meanwhile, NME is just going with tried and true strong.
Oh man, speaking of tried and true strong though, how about strong team fight power here? Team SoloMid, a lot of AoE lockup and a rumble for Dyrus. He's not gotten to play that champion in a pretty long time. They've shied away from that pick for TSM, but he used to be one of the best rumble players out there. Yeah,
oftentimes it would draw bans. For Dyrus' top lane rumble. Should give this TSM team a fair bit of damage. Just in general, they have good crowd control, so those three picks in synergy as far as being relatively blind do have good combos themselves.
So Rumble into Hecarim, I think we've seen that matchup a good number of times in the past. We're going to see it yet again. Could be a fairly snowbally matchup. You can deal damage while moving in both these cases, so if you get behind, expect the kill to come through just the same. Santorin does pick a farming style jungle, so we may not see a ton of pressure for him as NME Esports looks to make their next two choices. Now, of note, Inox, heavily known for his Nidalee play, doesn't go for it after all, but Body Drop played about 90% of his Challenger Series games on Morgana. And goes back to comfort here.
Morgana's a great pick against Alistair and Sejuani as well to block the initiations. And additionally, we're seeing NME pick a fairly early to mid-game snowballing strategy right here. Evelynn is a jungler, great early and mid-game pressure, but very poor transition to late game as far as itemization builds. If summoner spells are to be believed as well, FLICKR is going with the Ignite Hecarim, which wants to hit the power spike earlier on into the game, and NME is going to be looking to try and not get overwhelmed early, or try and overwhelm TSM early on in the game.
Well, it feels like they have a lot of tools to overwhelm early on, right? The Evelynn jungle, Kalista Morgana, I think is an amazing duo lane. You put her right in the range for the Morgana ulti afterwards, and she's ranged to proc the W all the same, so enemies comp definitely looking scary. TSM still looking for team fights for the most part, and the hover on Sivir seems to continue that trend, get everyone into range to land all these amazingly strong skills. And once again, Bjergsen looks like he will play Victor the second time in a row.
Yeah, so mid-range mage there from Victor. Needs to be able to stay safe. He was 45 CS up on Incarnation's Kog'Maw in the last game, but TSM was unable to close the game. So you want to keep the Victor here for TSM because they can get that early advantage, and it will be about closing. They brought more tools to start teamfights this game. Yesterday it was just the Maokai with Righteous Glory in the top lane and a Thresh. This game, it's Alistair, Sivir ultimate, and a Sejuani, which will potentially give them teamfights in the mid-late game.
Oh, absolutely. So 5-on-5, the bright neon sign here for Team SoloMid. Teamfights, please. Teamfights, thank you. And Bjergsen likely to win his lane all the same. So plenty of advantages, you'd think, in Champ Select.
Yeah. The thing about this, though, is Bjergsen did have to pick his Victor into an unknown pick from Inox. Inox played Caston yesterday, did a great job. He's really good at trading even in laning phase and then coming at you later. But early on, Victor will be able to shove Inox in, and it'll be about Trashy's support into that mid lane, whether or not Inox can withstand the power of Bjergsen Victor.
Absolutely. So far, very few have been able to withstand Bjergsen, but we'll see if Inox is going to be one that can do so. Anytime a new team joins the NA LCS, we wonder just how strong can they be really. NME with a close win over Gravity, but now you've got one of the, we assume, strongest teams in North America, and what everyone believes to be, or almost everyone believes to be, the best mid lane in North America as well. Inox facing Bjergsen. How about some hard tests to start out your LCS split?
Yeah. Bjergsen, ever since he joined the NA LCS, has been a monster in the mid lane. But TSM has faltered a little bit of late. You have to wonder when they're going to be able to get back on their feet, or if that's going to happen. So this would be NME trying to just keep them down right now, because TSM's still yet to pick up that win.
Well, we'll see if NME can do just that. Otherwise, both these teams will be ending the week 1-1. Closing comments in from the coaches. Champ select is over. Get yourselves off stage. There's a handshake. Here we go as we get ourselves into the loading screen. TSM coming at the series, losing their first game of the split. NME Esports riding a high wave of winning over Gravity. Let us know who you think is going to win this match after we've seen Champ select. Tweet hashtag TSM win or hashtag NME win to @LOL Esports. Let us know.
Yeah, one thing I have to mention about the Victor versus Kassadin champion matchup is the way their Qs work differently. When Kassadin puts out his Q, he gets the magic damage shield instantly. Victor has to wait for the spell to return to him, so Kassadin can actually win those trades.
That's true, and then the auto attack coming afterwards just gets blocked. We'll talk about the mid lane matchups afterwards. The crowd chanting their favorite tri-codes for their favorite team. Pretty decent enemy chant there as well. I know TSM typically gets a lot of it, but it's good to hear a balanced crowd. Now, the bot lane matchup is going to be definitely pretty interesting overall in this matchup, but Body Drop, the supportive enemy, says he sees a bit of himself in Lustboy's playstyle.
Lustboy in particular, he's a passive player, but he can also like show up with aggressive supports, and he's very calculated in the way he plays. He's not as aggressive as some supports like Kiwi Kid, and that's probably why I can relate to him the most.
Yeah, Lustboy's typically known for great defensive support play. Recently, at least in the NA playoffs, he was able to get some of the more offensive-oriented supports in. He played some nice Cannon in the playoffs, and now breaking out the Alistair. Of course, Alistair, I always like to think of him as this offensive lineman. He just boots people back with his headbutt in protection mode, so incredible defensive capabilities for Alistair as well.
It's good that here on the NA LCS we can talk about football and everyone knows what we're talking about.
I could always just say American football.
That's true.
That clarifies everything, right?
Or you can just be really aggro about it and just say football anyway and just sneer at any of the British co-casters.
Man, that got aggressive.
Shout out to the quick shot.
Yeah. He's South African freak. Come on.
I know that. Either way, we are into the game. Yeah,
We're
Team
ruined.
SoloMid. All right, so Dyrus helps Santorin start the camp. Trash actually solos his own red buff as Flares takes down Raptors and the dual lane takes down the Gromp right away. So 3 camps to 2 to start this game out.
Yeah, so basically, it was a bit of a defensive line start, but NME actually was able to invade and get a red buff ward, so at least they know that Santorin didn't start red. The ward actually expired so early that if he would have delayed a little bit, he could have still ended up starting on that side of the jungle, so not too much knowledge gained in general by NME over TSM, and we're just going to end up seeing these standard lanes, but NME has hit level 2 first.
Close binding right there. You can see Wild Turtle forced to last hit with only Qs for a little while. Bit of money earned by Body Drop, and now the auto attacks could be very scary. Rend and the W. I'm going to have to look at what it's called, actually. I even play Callista. Oh, it's just called Sentinel. I thought the passive had a different name.
Sends out a Sentinel.
But the passive does something different.
Sentinels you.
Like Yasuo has 2
damage.
names for his 2 passives.
That's true. Do you know those names?
Way of the Wanderer. And nope.
Yeah, I don't know either. All right. Yeah, it's interesting here that TSM's been pushed back early. It's basically what happens in most Alistair lanes. He's actually a fairly passive laner. Sivir Alistair in itself is more of a defensive lane. If they could get an upper hand and end up shoving in, they can pull that off. But most of the time, you end up seeing that lane get shoved in. So Otter and Body Drop doing good to not only shove in like that, but also get the ward and the tri-brush in their window that they had after they shoved the first wave in. So it's a safe shove as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got 3 spots of vision on the bottom side of the map, plus Sentinels running around. So you imagine this NME Esports duo lane should be fairly safe, and they're denying just a little bit of CS here. The smallest of leads for Otter. A ward does not spot Trashy. It was there to spot if he did the camp, but he walks right past it.
This will probably give Dyrus a bit of a false sense of security. It's quite rare for a jungler to walk all the way from their base, not clear a camp, and just keep on going. Where is Trashy
He went to go ward Gromp.
Yeah. And then he doesn't end up ganking. The lane was pushed anyways, so there wasn't much gank opportunity for Trashy.
That's true. But now he gets to know next time Santorin's on that side of the map, the rest of NME Esports can play aggressively. Enox could feel safe to play aggro. The gank could come in, and as soon as these guys actually spot Sejuani. Meanwhile, Trashy has been unrevealed for quite some time, so the rest of TSM must play a little defensively. Trashy even feels safe to go ahead and take away some more camps. So it's interesting.
Yeah, good kind of jungling.
Yeah, so far so good. I got to speak really briefly with Santorin about himself, FLICKR, and Trashy, and he's like, I haven't really played against those guys since like Season 2. So I don't really understand their playstyles anymore. So unfortunately, those bonds seem to be pretty loose between the 3 of them. Trashy had a few things to say about playing against Santorin when I asked him at the NACS finals, but mostly just what their styles used to be.
The bonds of Denmark?
Yeah, pretty much.
Trashy, Santorin, and Bjergsen. All Danish. Yeah, Santorin will know generally where Trashy has been because his jungler was cleared out. Also, he should have a pretty good idea that he walked through a ward here. This actually... If Santorin continues this path, it actually opens him up to a fair bit of counter ganking, which is why it would be wise to just end up going back to base, since Trashy most likely would know he's there.
Yeah. And of course the Trinket War that was over by the Krugs has timed out, so no direct information of Trashy, even though, as you said, they can infer a lot of it. Mid lane trade, you can see the shield interactions there. Bjergsen's shield came in time actually to block the Q regardless.
Yeah, Kassadin ends up being able to trade pretty well with the Victor, mainly because of that interaction of the shield from immediate on. Whoa, he just flashes in.
Flash E, in comes Trashy. Is the Ignite going to be enough damage? Oh, 7 health for Bjergsen. He chugs the pot just in time. Sent Jordan Hill to hold the wave.
That would have been a huge swing for enemy in this lane. If Bjergsen takes a single more minion auto attack at some point during that lane, he's dead. But Inox and Trashy can't quite convert, burning 3 summoners, only getting the 1 out of Bjergsen. And the question is, would they be able to push Bjergsen back before he's ready for his item timing? Because Bjergsen actually wants to sit on enough for his upgrade as well as boots, meaning he waits around 1 more wave. So at the end of the day, the gank actually does help a bit because it gives Inox absolute freedom and a little CS advantage here at 7 minutes.
Misses that one, stutter steps it, but yeah, Bjergsen can now buy boots and a potion or 2 here, depending how much he last hits. So far, impressive stuff. He's getting like almost the entire wave. All right, Bjergsen's actually going to stay, knowing that Inox did recall here and he feels safe. So eking out just little advantage as Bjergsen wanted to stay in this wave, then the E can clear it out. I assume. Yeah. All right, cool.
Inox ends up getting a fair bit of freedom as well. Because of that, he can get his full Catalyst as well as the ward combo that most mid laners like being able to back with. This is actually quite a good start from NME. We know that their team composition from Champion Select was geared towards this kind of mid-game power spike. FLICKR's used his first teleport to get back to lane instead of trying to pull off an aggressive play, so they're going to have to wait a little bit while longer for things to come online, but they haven't fallen behind yet.
Yeah, not yet at all, but it just feels like TSM has now some slight edges. A nice, really quick wave. They're going to actually hurt Otter's chances at getting some golden XP in this next wave. See what FLICKR ends up doing. He just doesn't have any wards to put down, so I guess he's going to take Scuttler?
Maybe.
Oh, he has ult. He could just dive.
He wants to gank mid lane.
Victor.
They know that Bjergsen's flash is down already, and Inox as well has his Rift Walk at this point. But interesting how he wouldn't just jump on him while he's in the choke. But they're going to go now. This would be a turret dive. A little bit dangerous.
They knock him in. There's the fear, the Ignite from... I mean, mean, you know it's a TSM game when 7 people show up mid, but it's NME Esports get the better side of it.
Yep, great support lend to the mid lane here from NME. The early pressure from Trashy. Santorin was giving no ganks early on, and Inox, just knowing the power of this Kassadin champion, trading flashes early before hitting level 6 will create a huge movement mismatch later on in the lane, so Inox uses that to assist the gank from Flares, and they completely punish Bjergsen for not having flash. Great job by NME.
Absolutely excellent play. Creation of plays by NME Esports, right? That's, to me, always the mark of a good team, that they realize that with nothing really telling him to do anything otherwise. Oh, body drop goes in. Of course, his spell should order down for Wild Turtle. He will land a stun on only one, but Lustboy has ulti. TP mismatch means Dyrus shows up. This equalizer could be absolutely brutal. Otter tries to dodge away, and he pulls back his Morgana, re-engages her, but maybe not something they need as Santorin shows up as well with ulti.
Wow. Really interesting move there. Enemy going aggressive with the teleport advantage falling in TSM. That's a very punishable play right now, and TSM is doing their best to punish that. But so far, good usage of Black Shields and Fake Calls to at least avoid deaths, and they may end up losing the turret nonetheless.
They lose part of the health in the turret, but keep in mind, Flares is doing like the same thing on the other side of the map. So, you know, the TP gets used, and in fact, looks like TSM are going to stay to knock this turret down, but a Trinity Force first, Phage holding Flares is going to get a lot of damage on the other side of this. Down to half, he's not going to get much more, but it's going to be low.
Yeah, because of the first blood, it keeps the gold pretty close as well. Interesting move there. It's going to give Flares that obvious free time in the top lane, but he's not able to take too much out of that. I still feel like that aggressive play by NME in the bottom lane does lead to some potential TSM advantages. Yeah. Let's see if this Dragon gets punished, though. Trashy wants to corral them in the pit here.
Well, the rest of TSM are coming in as soon as they can, but it won't be in time to steal it away. Blue team picks up Dragon. Santorin can jump the wall, still has flash as well. Wild Turtle slowed down by the Eve ulti. In comes the chase, forced to flash. The flash for Dragon is super worth it.
Yeah. Enemy wanted to wait for the rest of their team to arrive before committing to the pit. TSM was already down the Sivir ultimate. I think Enemy could have gone a little bit earlier right there. TSM able to secure some key objectives early on.
Nice Dyrus zoning Flares away. I think part of the minion wave died under the turret as well. I take that back. It's going to balance right here. Down a level. Flare's going to do what damage he can without any magic with his bot. Bjergsen, Inox in a trade. Bjergsen happy to answer back and actually wins that one. Flask used to get some health back on this Kassadin, but pink ward cleared as well. Going to be a good thing for Bjergsen.
I wonder, actually, just thinking about this Kassadin Victor matchup a little bit more. Because of the Catalyst and the Flask onto him, as long as it's not an all-in, even if Inox takes a slight disadvantage, that could end up being a trade in his favor as long as it sustains. Bjergsen has no way of keeping that up. However, that's 2 Death Rays in a row that he's been able to land on Inox that have not been dodged, and that's what's going to be giving Bjergsen a slight edge in this lane.
And you're seeing the consumables running out for this Kassadin player. TSM holding a 500 gold lead now as we crest into the mid-game somewhat. 11.5 minutes in. Big roam towards the top side. TSM turning over new leaf. This is 4 people ganking for Dyrus.
Get him. Flares, he's need to ult at just the right time.
Well, he dodges the Q. Flash, knock up, headbutt backwards. Flares in a rough spot. Ulti comes in. I guess the gank for Santorin. No assist for Dyrus.
Yeah, Dyrus only gets the free farm at the end of that lane. The roaming duo of Santorin and Lustboy picked that up. Nice job right there. Just spacing out properly against Flares, knowing that he could ult away. Lustboy also being the one in the back so he can basically cleanse the Terrify with his Unbreakable Will and still get the knock-up onto Flares. There was no escape there for the Hecarim Flares.
Not at all. Absolutely great play by the TSM members. Lustboy and Santorin playing that one, I think, roughly perfectly. Not much else could be done. Body drop and Trashy now in the mix. Dyrus has to flash the binding, does so. And he's going to be safe in the end of all that. 1,100 gold lead for Team SoloMid.
Yeah, TSM, they really need to get a win here based after what happened yesterday against Cloud9. Remember, at one point Bjergsen was up 45 CS to Incarnation, ended the game up 100 CS, but the team itself for Team SoloMid wasn't able to capitalize on that. Bjergsen was making some interesting, strange, bad calls in the mid-game where he couldn't find a right fight. They were backing away when they should have gone in. But this time they have a 1,000 gold lead. It's not Bjergsen that has the edge, though, so I'm really interested to see how this will affect TSM's overall strategy, whether they're going to try and pull in and help Bjergsen, or if they're going to actually try some other areas of carrying, like Dyrus' CS lead in the top lane.
Looks like that's been a successful avenue, though, for TSM, all things considered. Bjergsen's flash is back up, and I mean, to be honest, good luck ganking a Kassadin. I don't know if they could really make a lot of pressure in that lane after all. Maybe a Sivir rotate to go knock turrets down if we see that eventually be where they place Wild Turtle. Right now, though, TSM looking at turret kills as their primary objective. Dual lane heads towards the top side. FLICKR's not going to be defending that one anytime soon, and Otter's on the wrong side of the map to do so, so plenty of damage going to go down to this top turret.
Also, FLICKR's with a Black Cleaver rush.
Oh, weird.
On Hecarim right there. We pretty much always see the Trinity Force.
I assumed as much, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first time we're seeing the
Might
build.
end up being a fight here in the top lane.
Tries to fight Wild Turtle, but Turret's already dead. Ignite used, pops in the ulti, and the horses knock down the spell shield, meaning the fear lands. Kill for FLICKR's turret still goes down, but NME Esports able to answer back on the other side of the map as Otter knocks down the outer turret in the bot lane.
Yeah, more damage or less damage in the Trinity Force at 10 minutes. Hard to say, actually. That Black Cleaver seemed to do significant work, not to mention the move speed you're going to be getting from that Black Cleaver passive. And all the armor shred you can pull out. They're trying to return this around, but Trashy is here to help.
With a red buff, so be careful, TSM, who actually shows up. They're trying to bait it around, losing a lot of health as they chase around flares. There's the ulti, but they realize Bjergsen is coming up for this one. Two-man stun, gonna buy a little bit of time. Here's the engage onto flares, no help left on him. Down goes the pony. Otter looking for Dyrus, though. Ulti in from body drop. Black shield's on him. They're going to land the stun. Now, will they land enough damage afterwards? Red will do plenty. Body drop has to flash away, and Dyrus takes him down.
Always dangerous to go after a Rumble when he's got his ultimate up at any point in the game. And now Turtle's here to try and pick up Otter.
Flashes, gets away from the Q. Wild Turtle runs faster. He's got boots too. Pops the heal. Don't know if he needed to. That's going to be a kill onto Otter. One more hit. There he goes. Wild Turtle gets the kill. An unfortunate dive for NME Esports.
Crucial nerf to Callista, reducing the amount she can jump back. But this fight just doesn't want to end. Goodbye, Wild Turtle. It's been nice.
Well, depends on how much friends he gets in the near future. He's got Flash and Spell Shield up.
The best he can hope for is an execute right here. FLICKR doesn't have his ultimate,
go for the wave,
but he's going for farm. That's also an option.
All right, can they give assists away? He's trying to get away from where the rest of the team might be. Trashy will, in fact, get an assist.
And then give it to FLICKR. Nicely done there by NME.
Well done, well done. All right. 2 for 2 overall, but a lot of pressure mid at the same time. We keep seeing action for reaction over here. Mid lane very low now as Bjergsen gets a friend to help push this turret low.
Yeah, one thing that's really interesting here is the disparity in overall wave clear from these teams. It's a Bloodthirster Callista and a Kassadin versus a Victor and a Sivir. Victor and Sivir can clear these waves in pretty much one spell, whereas enemies has substantially more time taken to do that. So TSM has more opportunity for roams and deep wards, and we're kind of seeing the map mimic that. The majority of the blue minions are pushing up for TSM side, and it can create some plays for them.
Even Rumble can help in a pinch, at least defensively, so you're absolutely right. TSM doing a great job of getting deep vision down. Trashy not investing in the Sight Stone either, whereas Santorin is, so that's a pretty big important point as well. Level lead for FLICKR over Dyrus. Pops, Yoti knocks him back in. Dyrus has got really nowhere to go on this one, just gets completely ripped apart. Red buff plus Black Cleaver, making that one easy.
Poor positioning there for Dyrus. He needs to respect the red buff Hecarim, which they should know is there because of the Wild Turtle death. This game is non-stop action, though. Dragon is live. They're going to be fighting over this, and flares can come down to try and make this an odd-numbered fight.
Yeah, but Dyrus will have teleport in 12 seconds, whereas FLICKR didn't have that himself. This could be a threat. Mid lane turret goes down actually to a minion wave. So again, TSM still getting pressure leads. Dyrus has teleport, can go whatever he wants, and then show up to the fight regardless. He chooses to walk towards the dragon.
Inox with the blue buff as well has to use a lot of these rift walks. The fact that he's already started that counter means he can't really fight at any early moment. Also, thanks to the teleport threat, enemy knows that they're kind of outmatched this dragon, and it looks like TSM can go up 2 dragons to 0.
All right, well played. TSM on their 7th straight dragon kill in the North American LCS. Unperturbed in this one. 1,500 gold leads for TSM, though a very close game. I think closer than most people would have expected from this NME Esports squad. Of course, TSM still would say playing a good game.
Yeah, and also keep in mind, this NME team hasn't even had that much time with Trashy recently. He missed out on 3 weeks of practice with the team before the split. Didn't even have time for a practice scrim before the game, and this is the NME we're seeing early on. So there's a lot of upside for this NME team in the LCS. I'm also fascinated by this Black Cleaver Hecarim build. Because of the 20% CDR and now the Glacial Shroud, that's 30% CDR just in items, so hitting that 40% very easily. Not to mention that when you're max CDR on Hecarim, you can basically non-stop rampage once you stack it up, which is Hecarim's Q. And since that's extra armor shred and move speed, it's kind of this unstoppable whirlwind that comes after you if he's ever in a fight for a long period of time. It's kind of a devastating build.
Turtle's aware there is threat out there. He's going to try to take the wave as far back as possible. Notice no ricochet or Qs used, but he's afraid of the flank now. Now that less boys around, he might feel a little bit more secure. Well, Turtle definitely discretion, the better part of valor in this one. Otter cannot make the bait happen. No pressure bot lane. Another blue buff goes over to Bjergsen. These have been largely uncontested, and Bjergsen, sitting on a 23 minion lead, has done a pretty good job of continuing his mid-laning dominance.
Yeah, it's interesting in this situation. He's been able to shove out the Caston, but that's mainly in the matchup. I really do credit NME this game for shutting down Bjergsen for the most part with the early kill, not letting him roam as much, especially when the wave clear disparity is so huge. This one is moving towards team fights though, which is what TSM's team composition is kind of built for. With the Alistair, Sejuani, Rumble, everything basically built up, and Trashy and Flares would need to be the initiators of these fights to not get crushed by the TSM team fighting force.
We'll see if NME even wants to be part of a team fight with champions like Hecarim and Evelynn and Cassidy, and it just feels like splitting would almost be more successful for this squad on the red side. I don't think there's any reasonably accessed fight that could go well against this TSM lineup, but we'll have to see how they end up piloting it. Yeah. Again, the number of red wards not all that high to make split pushing very successful.
That's very true, and the potential roam from Sivir is very high, but instead, NME is going to have to play that split push game. Hecarim on one side, Caston on the other, trying to find the mismatches.
The Eve ulti landed, so did a couple of Rift Walks and Force Pulses from Inox, but simply not enough damage done. They will knock the turret down
behind them.
Oh man, Santorin can do a bunch of work. Body Drop has Black Shield, but he can just get, yeah, exactly, saved out anyway. Surprised he even Black Shielded himself.
Yep, well, Otter burned the flash early, and then Body Drop created space so that the Sejuani ult couldn't hit both of them. If TSM wanted the realistic kill there, they have to focus out the Kalista. That's how devastating Kalista can be as an AD carry. We were talking at the start of the game, it's like, oh yeah, Kalista Morgana, really good combo. Name a support that's not a good combo with Kalista. Those spells are so good. This time, though, no Kalista to save you.
Oh, goodbye, Body Drop. Bjergsen just chunks him out, just finished his death cap, and means he does a plenty of damage. 1,000 gold lead for TSM. It still stays close. It's weird because the game feels like TSM is winning it, but the scoreboard doesn't say that.
Yeah, well, the 2 dragons to 0 is the unseen gold. The stats that's going to be adding to them. Flares, though, if he can win this fight, it's one of NME's ways into winning the game. He has to be able to kill Dyrus. Great flash. He
just straight juked it. I don't think he even flashed for it. That's already on cooldown for him. He just walked backwards and didn't get feared in. Flares waiting for the kill, does get it, walks away, missed the ulti, and still wins. But mid lane tier 2 went down in the 4 versus 3 on the other side of the map for the most part. TSM getting farther ahead.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game, honestly, because Flare's able to solo out Dyrus right there. I missed the flash, obviously, and every time Flares is away from there, even 4v4, TSM is a stronger force, so they're able to push down these turrets. But if it's that balance, how strong is Flare's going to be in split pushing and able to create those side options, and how brute force is TSM going to be able to go? Whichever one breaks, Flare's is getting stronger and stronger, whereas the team fighting team of TSM is as well. Different goals for these team comps, and it's creating a relatively close game. Which is just so interesting, right? TSM's kills are really spread apart. You've got 1 or 2 kills for pretty much everyone on the team. Almost a perfect split across everyone, whereas 5 of the 6 kills from NME Esports are just on Flares. The disparity in power is so massive and so different in this game. It really does. It furthers what the team's goals are compositionally. So yeah, it is really about Flares versus 5 members of TSM and see what happens. Yeah, 8,300 gold on the Hecarim. About 100 more gold than Bjergsen, who's the richest member on Team SoloMid. A big item power spike, though, for Inox in that Luden's Echo. That's the Caston he loves to play, increasing his burst when he can jump in. This next Dragon, though, Freak, is the most important one we've seen yet this game. It's more about Dragon denial right now. If TSM can keep NME out of Dragons, they stop a lot of their scaling. And NME would really want this one, but it's exactly what they can't do. It's super difficult for them to group up as 5. If that happens, they could just get about a 5,000 gold swing in the side of TSM if they lose a fight around this Dragon.
And that might be unsurmountable. TSM have the tools to turret dive with Sejuani Alistair, so just forcing team fights on objectives becomes easier as gold comes in for TSM. Now, NME Esports, they are still splitting up the top lane. There's Hecarim's top, as is Rumble. The remaining 4v4, not something that NME can easily win. They don't really even have poke to make it difficult for TSM to traverse. The waves are constantly cleared first for TSM, and they're always able to regroup back towards Dragon.
Yeah, TSM needs to keep themselves as a fairly grouped up unit to avoid a lot of the flank attacks. They need to be running straight at people because they have the move speed advantage with Sivir and good initiation tools. The danger that NME wants to try and exploit is if they can get some type of flank and actually get on top of the Victor, burst him out quickly while the tanks aren't there to CC, and then they can have an advantage. This is an interesting trade though right now. NME trying to sneak the Dragon, and instead of pushing mid, TSM actually comes back because they'd rather have a team fight.
Be careful though, 2,000 gold on the Dragon, and these guys are unwilling to stick around for it. Should be a quick pickup. Caston coming back down. Recall for Flare so he can home guard TP in and be there before Dyrus. There's the double TP. Both are coming in right now.
Yeah, respect from TSM though. They pull back, wait for the home guards, and they'd rather set up this 5v5, but Dragon's going down. It's going to force a fight.
Blue team smites it. Santorin takes away the Dragon, but the battle has begun. Bind out of Dyrus. Into the back line goes Flares. He's going to get stunned up though, and Victor's going to have a field day on this one. Rumble goes down, so does the opposing top laner. Trashy flashing out. The Tempest just crushing everyone, and Body Drop might just be the next casualty. It's a 1-for-1. Low health bars, and NME Esports a great black shield. Inox. Jeez, barely squeaks away.
Explosive fight right there. I don't think Otter has a way out of that one. And the Dragon Steal by Santorin is incredibly important right there. The stat swing that he denied NME right there is in the thousands of gold. It's a nice amount of lifesteal from Otter. TSM has more people.
Full. Just outplay it. Fade mechanics. Damn, he tried.
Just outplay it, man. You can do it.
Just outplay the targeted headbutt pulverize. It's easy. All right, well, TSM on the end of that one getting a third Dragon and go 2-1 overall in kills. Turret pressure, Dragon pressure, gold lead. TSM looking to, as always, make it a 1-1 end of the first week.
Yeah, you can see that in this fight in particular, now that we get to take a look at it again, it's a very straight-up fight, which is in the favor of TSM, because NME would love to flank with Evelynn, but since the Dragon was contested, no flank was possible, which gives TSM the upper hand. Look at the tanks being in the front. So basically, when NME tries to jump past, the tanks can keep everyone but Flares in place. Therefore, they can lock down Flares with a Victor stun, kill him, and then move throughout the rest of the fight with that monstrous Chaos Storm from Bjergsen's Victor and push through. It was a closer fight than you may have expected because of how fed the Hecarim is, but at the same time, that's the battle line that TSM wants to draw.
It made it a very close fight. To be honest, the 5v5 was much closer than I expected it to be, as NME Esports made the core of that fight a 1-for-1, and just a couple of things going here or there would have changed that around. All the same, though, Team SoloMid still just accruing their advantages over time. Most of the members up in the top lane, while does not spell shield in time, takes a fair bit of damage out. As he can wait for some healing from Alistair. Santorin, he's actually out of range of the ward. And out goes the Oracle's pop.
Yeah, and I was actually talking with I Will Dominate after their win today, and he said one thing they're striving towards this split is to be more like the top teams like Team SoloMid in eking out close games against what they call like middle of the pack teams, which is what most people expect NME to land in the LCS. TSM has this way of, even if they fall a little bit behind earlier or in close games, they always seem to be able to grind it out. And here, if they can grind out a win against NME in what's fairly contested, it's one of those things that will kind of say, yes, TSM is still one of the top teams in North America, and if they can't, it's time for worry.
Definitely would be. Right now, though, TSM, I guess, can't feel too terribly worried. Bjergsen 4-1. He's doing so much damage for his team, a ton of ability power on him. And as the buffs get taken away, SoloMid seem happy to just play for the Dragon slowly but surely. Unless they can get those deep wards in to create an advantageous rotation, maybe take a tier 2 turret down. But NME so far doing a decent job of keeping waves under control as well. Trashy keeps roaming back and forth, but this Evelynn has actually spent so much time looking for a chance at a gank that his farm's actually fallen pretty far behind.
Incredibly far behind. Whoa! Run away.
Ult for ult, binding and hit Wild Turtle, and are they going to turn back around on this one? It's going to be a bit dangerous, but they're going to try. Flare just goes all the way and takes the kill down, traded back as Bjergsen slays him. AD carry for top laner, fairly decent trade, but again, that's all that kills for NME Esports just died.
Yeah, they were able to burn the equalizer as well. So if we're talking about ultimate trades, it's still okay, but it's still a roaming kill squad. The rest of
Oh,
the team,
wow.
That's the Luden's burst. Inox has to get out of there now.
Well, Reflux up in a second. Gets pushed around.
But
That's
that's
the kill picked up. Nicely done by Lustboy. Flashes in for the headbutt. Pulverize takes him down. Another advantageous trade for TSM, and they're getting farther and farther ahead.
Yeah, not worth harass right there by Inox, and you're seeing the 600 plus AP Victor come in. And that's 537 right now. But it's soon to be 600 plus if they're able to get some more items there.
It's basically 600, chat.
Basically 600.
Round to nearest 600.
Just round up to 600. It sounds more impressive.
It does.
700.
Trashy finds Bjergsen doing his best impression of Rush, but Bjergsen stays safe. Out he goes. TSM getting away cleanly every single time, it seems.
Look out,
All right.
though.
He's going to ult them.
He's going to flash.
He's going to keep going.
Flares just wants to get in range for an auto attack for the Iceborne slow.
He's got it. The question is, though, this Dyrus slow is pretty darn strong, and Trashy wasn't there in time.
Attempting to get that split push going, but players can't really seem to do that. And this mid turret's still so healthy. Inox hasn't been able to shove that lane up at all. The spam from the Victor on Bjergsen kept that lane completely controlled.
Yeah, the mid lane is 2 turrets to 0. I mean, Bjergsen has clearly just shown the push lead, and even though you don't, I guess it's actually pretty big, but you don't see like the most massive CS lead between the two. The fact that you're seeing such an obvious disparity in minion kill power, in pushing power, the turret kills are also a really big point to watch for in this matchup. Bjergsen's certainly getting the better of it.
Yeah. Just from a team composition standpoint as well, NME has to fully commit if they want these fights. And when they're always pushed in from the minions as well, it just makes their windows smaller and smaller, whereas TSM can just keep wave clearing and then taking the objectives as they come. 4th Dragon about to come in here for TSM.
Uncontested 4th Dragon. All right, 6 minutes away from aspect of at 36.5 in. TSM have their eyes on the prize, and so far they've done a good job of being controlled, and they're really not getting objectives traded back against them. It's still only 2 turret kills for NME Esports. These guys have not had that same split push power that Cloud9 did. It's TSM almost playing the exact same game they did yesterday, just not being punished as much. Ooh,
well, it's interesting because the gold lead is actually about the same as it was against Cloud9, so this game is still very much up in the air. This is a really quick Baron, though. They're going in with that Rumble out to stop the escape. How low is Baron? It's not low enough!
Not low enough at all. Here comes the engage. A giant engager. Lustboy flares nearly dead at the start of the fight, and in comes the return towards Bjergsen. They can't quite kill him, though. Otter tries, but can't quite. The Ignite takes him down. Bjergsen, the first kill of the fight, in towards that 80. Carry from NME Esports now. Body drop the next casualty. Out goes Morgana. 2 for 0. Flares not going to get found. TSM goes back for Baron.
Wild Turtle was not there, so NME thought maybe even if they peel off, they could win a 5v4. That was not quite enough. Here comes Flares, though, trying to keep this fight going. Inox might jump in as well.
Low on health, no smite up. Flares picks up 1. Bjergsen goes down. Smite, no, it's going to be picked up by Sivir. A couple kills traded back as well. Can Flares hard carry this fight? He's taken 2. He's going for a 3rd, but the zone is going to keep him safe. Ace for TSM plus the Baron.
That balloons the gold lead to about 7,000 after that one, but Chaos has entered the rift in this game. NME desperately tried to stop that one, but TSM was just strong enough. What a crazy series of events right there.
Oh man, nice attempt by NME Esports. They're certainly not shy about trying to re-engage and salvage situations. They get 2 Baron buffs off, maybe that is worth it, but this equalizer by Dyrus is great to start things out.
Yeah, and it's just because the Baron wasn't able to get bursted down. Not a huge amount of DPS from that NME team when they're on the Baron, so when the fight actually does happen, also the fact that the flank came in from Bjergsen was really key right there. He basically did all of Otter's health with a couple of spells.
Yeah.
And that just completely took NME out of the fight. They tried to jump so heavily on Bjergsen, but this time TSM actually stayed together during teamfights, something they critically failed to do against Cloud9, where they would split up into different sides. The fight obviously continued. Flares teleported all the way back in. Still had his ultimate, apparently. I'll have to check if he had that up during the first Baron. And then TSM, because they had the numbers advantage, can just easily take that Baron. I'm going to check on that ultimate for the first fight.
Yeah, awkwardly for NME Esports, at the very start of that Baron, you had some peeling off, and like FLICKR and Trashy and Inox stayed in the pit hitting Baron actually, and it definitely hurt him a little bit. They weren't able to get out of that ring, and a massive AoE CC from Lustboy made that nice. 5 turrets killed now for Team SoloMid. They're up 8,000 gold. As you said, they've ballooned this advantage. Little that NME Esports can do to stop them. Their wave clear is just so limited.
Yeah, and this is the weakness of their team composition. They basically have to flank fight immediately, but there's a pink ward far behind TSM, so they can kind of control the flank right there. Very hard for NME to fight. I did check as well, the Hectormald was up by FLICKR, so some questionable decision-making at that Baron about whether they should fight at the start or not. TSM kind of respecting this flank, but they do have vision if it happens.
And so far they are grouped up. The question is, how fast can Lustboy turn around if a flanker does show up? You can always knock back the Hecarim and remove the chance. Dive comes in. Dyrus the TP right under the turret here, but the engage is coming back and forth from other sides. Trashy's around, hasn't ulted just yet. All of TSM grouped up. They delete Otter. That's a 1 for 0 to start things off. Body dropped the second kill as well. Inox just running away. Trashy also eliminated. A nice headbutt back in. FLICKR's forced to ult away. Still 4 kills picked up as Dyrus picks up another one. 18 to 10, 34.5 minutes in. TSM looking to close this out right now.
Yeah, just Inox alive. That's not enough to defend against 5 people. TSM looking for a win.
All right, pretty good game by these guys. The early game was close, the mid game fairly close as well, but Bjergsen kept doing better and better and better throughout this game, kept the pressure onto Inox, and TSM will find their first win of the split.
Yeah, we really got to see Bjergsen's team fight power on Victor this game, something that was sorely lacking in their matchup against Cloud9. Some pretty key differences for this TSM game, obviously. Playing a less experienced team against them in NME, a team without as much wave clear in order to trade objectives. TSM also substantially more crowd control and protection, so in the team fights, the carries could get work done. Bjergsen and Wild Turtle, consistent damage in these team fights, and once again, TSM starts 1-1.
Of course they do. NME Esports themselves 1-1 as well. Their opponents this week, Team SoloMid and Gravity, so 1-1, not a bad start for the newcomers to the NA LCS. We can see them go anywhere from here. Now, they of course did play an entire split with this lineup, so there's a lot of experience together. You could say, well, Trashy wasn't here for the last 3 weeks, so maybe they lost some of it, but I guess I hope for their sake that they do improve from here. There were some reasonably obvious mistakes in their play.
Trashy really didn't make anything happen with his Evelynn the whole game, which is unfortunate for a champion that has so many early game tools with the permanent stealth. Being outfarmed 85 to 160 by the end of it also doesn't help, especially since Evelynn scales poorly to begin with. So later in the game, we really saw the team fight discrepancy, both from the farm, but as well as the team comps, doom NME to defeat here.
Yeah, and it's crazy to point out with NME Esports, aside from flares, the highest kill participation in the game for their team was 3 of 10. You had 3 assists on Evelynn, 3 assists on the Morgana, and 2 on Inox and Otter. It was all flares. The entire reason this game was even close was flares actually stepped up. Very aggressive player. Sometimes it backfires, but he kept his team in the game this one.
Yeah, nature of the split push as well. They were trying to split push the lanes, but at the end of the day, TSM could find enough ways of forcing fights. This time it was around the Dragon. They used their 4 Dragons to win the game, whereas they had their 5 Dragons previously against Cloud9 and could not. Honestly, though, NME can't be too upset about this one. They gave TSM a pretty good run for their money, kept the gold close the majority of the game, and they know they have a lot more time to practice and grow together. That's why they're all smiles right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We heard Inox talk about it yesterday. He said they're more than friends. They feel like they're just a big group of brothers. So the NME family certainly still some growing pains, but yes, definitely look like a pretty good team here in North America. And as we talked about growth, I do want to go back to TSM real quick. Prepping in for the Midseason Invitational, if I recall the stats properly, they had one of the lowest Dragons taken stats of all the teams there.
There are some interesting things about TSM's Dragon Control in the spring split. Basically, they had one of the highest win rates when giving up the first Dragon because they were fairly good at objective trading it. And out of all the regions, they had the first Dragon the fewest times. So definitely a big switch up. It seems like we can't really tell after 2 games. Sometimes they get Dragons by luck. But much more focus on Dragon this split from TSM. 9 Dragons to 0 against their opponents so far.
Well, I guess TSM, though, playing well around objectives, playing fairly measured. We'll see if they can keep forward momentum now throughout the rest of the split. TSM hoping to return to that #1 spot as they were in the spring. We'll see if that happens next week. But for more, let's send it down to Riv, who's on the stage with TSM's man in the mid lane.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great cast on the day so far. I am joined by Team SoloMid's Bjergsen after a victory over NME on Victor. I have to go back to yesterday as well. Wins are always easy to talk about, but I want to figure out what kind of happened in the Cloud9 game. Where do you guys feel you faltered, and what wasn't able to happen for you to come back for C9?
We got that early lead, and we weren't really able to translate it. They swapped the lanes once we got a teleport advantage, so we didn't really take advantage of having that TP advantage and being able to control the map like that. So they swapped on us, and we didn't make the necessary plays, and we gave up a couple turrets. So we really just had a lead, and we threw it away by not being aggressive and just not pushing our lead. And then eventually their comp did outscale, but we had every chance to win the game with our lead.
And going back to Victor a second time, feeling comfortable on that as you guys come out against NME today. What was changed from last night to today that you guys knew you needed to focus on from that Cloud9 game?
We just went back right away and we reviewed the game and we looked at all the opportunities that we had to snowball the game, all the opportunities we had to really push our lead. And today we tried to really push our lead and we tried to do a lot more things. It was a lot easier because their comp had a lot less wave clear. They were more split push focused rather than the C9 comp, but still I think we did a better job of snowballing our lead once we got it.
All right, and what's TSM looking at the other teams like right now? Obviously, we have TDK, NME now. These guys are also going to be leveled up because of the high play of Cloud9 and TSM. How are you looking at these new teams in the LCS?
We haven't been able to scrim against TDK or NME, so this is my first game against NME, but they gave us a run for the game. Like, our early game, they did very well. FLICKR had a lot of control over the map. He roamed mid, he killed me. Trashy had a lot of good early game pressure. So the teams are definitely looking good, and the season is going to be really exciting.
All right, well, you guys now 1-1, so can keep getting yourself to the top of that list as the weeks come. Congratulations to you on the win, and best of luck as the season continues. Right now, we're going to throw it to the analyst desk to break down that game a little more.
Thank you, Rivington. As he mentioned, a much-needed victory there for TSM after a somewhat disappointing loss yesterday against Cloud9. Already mentioned a little bit by Bjergsen there. I kind of want to look at the differences between yesterday's game and today's game in that both they did have early gold leads. However, today they were able to press that gold lead and turn it into a victory through what seemed to be very, calm pressure, calm, consistent pressure throughout the mid-game.
Yeah, I mean, they never really faltered. NME, being one of the new teams, they really focus on, grabbing a couple kills, but TSM, they stayed objective-focused gameplay. They knocked down outer turrets, they stacked up dragons, controlled, and they finally just, walked it home.
Yeah, and I think the big difference in the play style was whenever Dyrus would die somewhere, or whenever somebody would die on a side lane to flares, they were like, all right, let's get a turret for that. And then when you saw when Otter's like, oh, I'm on a solo mission, 3 people come to him after a team fight, NME gets nothing off of that except Otter dying. Right? They didn't.
When Turtle gets caught out, he runs away up the lane, tries to drop people away, and they get turret.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like Otter did that as well. He tried to clear a wave underneath the tier 2 turret, and then it's like enemies still just trying to back, and they're not doing anything with his sacrifice.
Right, whereas in the other instance, TSM was pushing up the mid lane and putting pressure on that turret. On the side of NME, I guess we did talk about how they did prioritize kills. They had a lot of gold onto a singular person in flares on Hecarim. However, that didn't net anything beyond that, besides having a singular threat. And so you have to wonder when you are going up against the consistent pressure that TSM was applying, and without having champions built for wave clear, where and how they should have played that Hecarim around the map as opposed to straight into team fights.
So I think Hecarim in team fights is still really good. This is a flanking composition with Evelynn and Hecarim. You want to be able to wrap around. Evelynn can place a ward behind them within stealth, and then it's like, oh, TP home guard into the fight, right? And then Otter has no front line. And it came down to the way NME was trying to play this comp was they weren't trying to flank with it. They were trying to just straight up 5v5. So because they were doing that, and I actually have a replay around the Baron that I think showcases this.
We'll pull that up right now.
Yeah,
then,
exactly. Because Hecarim, he's fed at this point, right? He has so much gold on him, and they drop the ball here. They clear the vision out. They make sure that TSM can't see this pit. Bjergsen, you can see on the minimap, is far away. Turtle is very far away. He doesn't even pop his ultimate to get to this fight, so he's not going to arrive any faster. Start rolling it out, and you can see FLICKR has his ultimate up there. They've cleared the pit. There's a pink ward there. They didn't pull off and try to bait it. If everybody had just put the pink ward down and they walked away from the Baron, Dyrus would have thrown his ultimate into Fog of War and it would have been wasted. Flares gets chunked out, and he never gets an opportunity to use his ultimate. And like I said, Evelynn Hecarim is the front line for this team, and Otter's positioning becomes crucial. And in this fight, he chose to go forward to try and get Bjergsen. And the build that Flares had selected for himself, which is Black Cleaver, Iceborne Gauntlet, it's not as bursty as, let's say, a Trinity Force, right? So he didn't opt to go for a build where he dives the backline, tries to one-shot Bjergsen or Wild Turtle, and then continue the fight from there, which may have been a more optimal build for this situation.
I think my problem isn't even with the lack of bursty build. It's that you rush into this Iceborne Gauntlet build against a
Rumble,
like all AP team. Basically, if you're going to be one-shotting the AD carry, the rest of their team is all AP. Magic resist. If you're gonna go into four AP people, you need magic resist.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do see the point in that the Black Cleaver and the Iceborne Gauntlet provide a slightly more sustained damage as opposed to the burst damage.
It's got some CDR on it, and his W comes up more often. He's a little tankier, through that whole thing. But,
there's definitely a situation in which that build is awesome.
Yes.
I don't feel like this was that situation.
Yeah, and so instead, what should have been done, in my opinion, is that they should have said, stay in the side lanes, revert the build to something that is a little bit more 1v1 oriented. Since you're going up against the Rumble, you probably don't need Iceborne Gauntlets. Instead, let's go Trinity Force and get a Spirit Visage in there and have you apply the pressure around the map that counteracts the siege that TSM is laying down, because we can't afford to fight them straight up. I think if that strategy had been applied, perhaps we see a different result here in this game.
Yeah, and Black Cleaver is great, right? Black Cleaver is awesome, but there isn't enough armor to really warrant buying that item. So I definitely agree that he should
I think we do need to
push thing.
Give credit to TSM for the constant pressure.
Yes.
NME is a new team. They're dealing with this constant pressure from TSM, on all of their objectives. And it looked like, it's a kind of desperation play. You get it. You're only a little bit behind during that Baron replay. But if you trap all yourselves in Baron Pit versus the 4 AP team with a Rumble ultimate blanketing the door, then that's a make or break play right there.
I love the call from NME to go for the Baron at that point. That was the absolute best time they could have called for it. Wild Turtle's back. It's a great opportunity. The execution on it just falls flat. So props to NME there. Props to TSM for executing that fight well on their part. So kind of props all around, but also it's kind of a situation that probably shouldn't have happened.
Okay, you can give them.
I will give them props and I will slap their wrist at the same time.
Participation medals are being handed out right now on the analyst desk.
Hey,
anyway, we'll be right back after this quick break with our fifth and final game of the day, Team Dragon Knights versus Gravity. So don't go anywhere.
I actually played one game in EU where I played Heimerdinger jungle, and I legit played decently well. So
I'm very proud of you.
Santorin takes away the dragon, but the battle has begun. Bind out of Dyrus. Into the back line goes Flares. He's going to get stunned up, though, and Victor's going to have a field day on this one. Towards Bjergsen. They can't quite kill him, though. Otter tries, but can't quite. The Ignite takes him down. Bjergsen, the first kill of the fight.
They're on me.
I'm on Otter.
Nice. They can list all the...
I'm turning everyone.
I'm ulting them.
Babe.
Even Hecarim? Hecarim?
We can end.
Yeah, we can end here.
TSM will find their first win of the split.